where Cap and Bucky go to that Russian compound thinking that they're about to, take on a bunch of Russian super soldiers. And Cap kind of reminisces with Bucky for a second there. He says, "Oh, remember that time we went to, I can't even remember it now, where he says, like, we went to that park and you bought this girl a hot dog and you called her Dot." And like, they have
Coney
that
Island.
Coney
Rebecca.
Island. Why did I blank on that? I'm from here.
Yeah,
Why did I?
You've been there.
I know. It's that moment of these two guys have, literally 100 years of on and off friendship, and you feel it in that moment. They think they're about to walk into like the fight of their life, and so this is kind of that same thing of like Geordi is pleading for his friend to remember what their friendship means to him. And it is a well-executed scene. I totally agree, Dan. I think this is a very beautiful scene, actually, and I think it's well acted by both actors here.
Very bromantic.
It is. And I enjoy a nice bromance. I really do.
And, neither one of them had a lot of love interests. In
No.
fact, they were kind of, dare I say, all of either one of them's love interests were strange.
Indeed.
For various reasons.
Mm.
Yeah, so they do have like a bromance. I mean, it's like me and my roommate. We're best friends till the end, and we're just always there for each other, and it's really sweet.
Oh.
And I'm Data in this situation, just so everybody's clear.
Oh, okay.
Not that I would do something like that to my best friend, but
okay. So after Data leaves Geordi, he goes outside, talks to Lore, and Data begins to express guilt over what's happening. They came looking for me. That's why they're here. If something happens to them, it's my fault. And Lore's like, why are you talking like that, bro? Like, you shouldn't, you should be focused on our main mission here. Lore, we see what Lore does. And we've seen Data do this too. He lifts up his fingernail.
Oh, that grosses me out, by the way. I'm sorry.
I know. It is disgusting. I hate it.
Oh,
I was hoping that was going to come up because that just really grossed me out.
Yeah, like I hate that more than where he's got like his scalp pulled back and you see his Christmas light brain, as you call it.
Right, his Christmas tree brain. Yeah.
Yeah, that's more like, I can imagine that I hurt if you had feelings and,
Oh, yeah. No,
pardon my outburst. That was something where I went, ooh, when I saw it. It's something with fingernails. I don't like it.
Yes, for me, it also does have a guttural response.
Yeah, it definitely has an aspect of body horror if you put yourself in that position, say, oh, if that was a real fingernail, like that would be terrible. But we do see that Lore basically hits a button and it begins to cut off the emotions that he's sending Data. And Data reacts, I mean, he physically reacts of like, I've been cut off, and Lore's like, oh, you don't like that? Do you want emotions? And he's like, yeah. He's like,
feels.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's like an addict. He needs his fix. He's completely hooked on these emotions. And Lore knows that he's got Data right where he wants him. And he's like, okay, I'll give you a little bit more just to make sure that, you have some clarity of where like, so you can see the situation clearly of what you have to do. But then again, we just see Lore continuing to manipulate everybody around him, including Data. So back on the Enterprise, the metaphasic shielding is starting to fail. They've only got about 3 minutes they can stay in the sun. But they don't have warp speed yet. They need another half an hour. So Ensign Tate proposes an idea. She says they can cause a solar fusion eruption by using a focused particle beam on a specific spot on the surface of the sun. It will cause an explosion that will basically shoot out and destroy the Borg ship. And Lieutenant Barnaby is like, you want to do what now? You want to like shoot a beam into the sun? Is that a good idea? And she's like, well, I did my thesis at the Academy on solar dynamics. I've already figured out the spot. I've already input the calculations. Like, I just have to press this button. It's going to happen. Lieutenant Barnaby's like, well, if your calculations are off, it's going to destroy us too.
Throwing it back at her now.
And then it sort of comes full circle. Well, I guess I'll have to make sure my calculations are correct. Like, it comes very full circle here to that dynamic we were talking about earlier. And Beverly's like, you know what? Do it. Either way, we've got to do something. And, of course, it works. They blow up the Borg ship. And even Lieutenant Barnaby's like, she did it. And then he's like, oh, wait, let me pull it back a little bit. Don't want to be too much, you know. Okay, so we're coming here to back in the holding cell. Data comes back, and this time he's here for Picard. So he takes Picard into the big meeting hall. Again, he tries to reason with Data. He's telling him, you know, your ethical programming should be telling you that all of this stuff is wrong. If a bunch of wrong actions, it cannot lead to a greater good. Like, there's no way all these bad things will make something good happen. And you see Data, he's coming to that point. You know, he's struggling. His conscience is basically kicking in. He's struggling with his feelings and what he's done and what he might still do. We go back to the caves. We've got Worf and Riker who are ready to basically storm the castle here. And he was like, well, good luck, I guess. And he's like, see you later, maybe. He seems a little reluctant to help them still. And so in the Borg compound, Lore tells Data to kill Picard, to prove his loyalty to the cause. And Data, he just can't do it. This is it. He's like, nope, it's wrong. Can't do it. And then we get a shot of Hugh. He has snuck into the compound. He's there in the meeting hall. He's kind of watching what's happening. Lore then tells the Borg that he's like, you know, I've asked you guys to make a lot of sacrifices, but I'm not asking you to sacrifice anything I'm not willing to sacrifice. Again, more manipulation. And he's like, I'm going to kill my brother to show you, because he's not loyal to our cause. You know, he's ready to shoot Data. Hugh, and then Hugh intervenes. He, you know, does no, and he jumps in and he stops it from happening. And Riker and Worf are there, and everybody's kung fu fighting in the hall. Like, everybody's just, yeah. That's what I thought of when I saw the episode. Everybody's kung fu fighting. So things have kind of come to a head here. You know, Data seems to be kind of getting back on track. Lore then starts to plan his escape, because Lore's always got an escape plan. He tells Data, you can come with me. Like, we can start over. We're still brothers. You know, he tempts him with the chip, saying, you know, there's not just emotions here. There's also memories that our father wanted you to have. And of course, it's all just a ploy because Lore tries to kill him, but then Data shoots Lore first. And then we get a really great shot of Lore kind of like laying face down, Data standing over him. And Lore's like, if, you know, without me, you'll never have emotions. And Data says that he knows that, but it's a sacrifice he has to make to basically end this whole thing. Lore says, I love you, brother. But he's got that smile on his face. I don't know about you guys, but I was like, you still don't mean it.
No, he's dirty to the end.
Yeah.
Right to the end. He doesn't even mean it.
He just likes to say whatever he can to make other people follow him. That's why he calls the Borg his followers. Like, he just likes to feel like he has power over everyone else.
Yep. And then
he is like the worst ex-boyfriend or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like,
he kind of
you always have a friend who's had some guy that she's dated who's just like this.
Oh, 100% true. 100%.
I mean, yeah, I have to say there is like a female sort of analog, but it's slightly different. But, you know, anyway.
Yeah.
Proceed.
No, but like absolutely true. I mean, Lore is just dirty to the end. You know, he's telling his brother he loves him, but, you know, he doesn't mean it. And, you know, Data just tells him, goodbye, Lore. And he shuts him off. And we actually see his eyes go having life in his eyes to just becoming completely lifeless. And it's pretty impactful. So back in the meeting hall, the fight is over. Hugh says, they can't go back to the collective because, they don't want to be a part of that anymore. He says, we no longer have a leader at the compound. And Picard's like, sure about that? Because you look like a leader to me, Hugh. And it's true. Hugh has positioned himself to step into that leader role. And Hugh hopes that they can function together, but as individuals. Picard wishes him luck. And, of course, the crew, the remaining crew will beam up to the Enterprise. This is the last time that we see Hugh on screen. Now, that doesn't mean that this is the last we hear of Hugh, because certainly in the expanded universe, Hugh has shown up in other works. But of course, there will be here. Okay, so here's what I found. So there were several mentions of him. He appears in a novel called Avenger, where, not to be confused with The Avengers, that's a whole nother franchise. His group of the Borg worked to help a resurrected James T. Kirk, which sounds wild. That the Borg resurrected Kirk, and he is somehow involved in that. I know. I haven't read that novel, but I think I want to now. There's another novel called Greater Than the Sun, where he sacrifices himself and dies. He appears in Star Trek Online expansion game called Delta Rising. And there's also another alternate timeline book called Millennium, which is a Deep Space Nine book, where he teams up with Seven of Nine to negotiate a treaty between the Borg and the Federation. That, however, isn't... So that was the one... I know.
Interesting.
That was the one that really caught my eye, because in the Picard trailer, we've seen both Hugh and Seven of Nine in the trailer. And here, they were also in an expanded universe story. Mm-hmm. I'm super interested to read that story, actually, Millennium. And I'm wondering, and I don't know if it's going to be based on that. I doubt it's going to be based on it, because with the expanded universe, that's usually just, that's canon, but it's not on-screen canon, so
right.
Much like with the Star Wars universe, all those books, they were canon, but not on-screen canon.
Did I hear you say that he's going to make an appearance in Picard?
Yes, he is in Picard.
Yeah.
So
I'm so excited now.
It's really cool, because we know the Borg have a part to play in that show. We know the Romulans have a part to play. We've seen Seven of Nine in the trailer. We saw Hugh in the trailer. So we know that he's involved here. In what capacity? Of course, Brooke and I have our theories and of what we think is going to happen. The internet has their theories. But I think it's really interesting that there is an expanded universe story about Hugh and Seven of Nine. And we're getting Hugh and Seven of Nine in Picard. I just think it's interesting.
And when does Picard air?
It starts January 20th.
Oh, right around the corner. Awesome.
It's like a month of...
23rd?
Oh,
it's that Thursday of that week. Because Thursday's going to be the day that it airs.
Yeah, so just a little over a month away from what we're recording today. So, very exciting. Very exciting. Okay, final scenes of the episode. We get a captain's log, stardate 47025.4, which is Saturday, September 20th, 2369 at 3:29 p.m. Enterprise is headed back to Starbase 295, and Geordi is under Dr. Crusher's care, getting better. In the final scene of the episode, Geordi visits Data in his quarters. He tells him he'll be able to go back to duty soon. Data says he's relieved that Geordi's injuries are not permanent. You could tell that Data feels terrible for what happened, or what he did to Geordi under the influence of Lore. Data has removed the emotion chip from Lore before having him disassembled. So this is the last mention we also get of Lore in the series, that he was disassembled in this episode. Now, where they put parts, they don't tell us, but he was disassembled here, presumably never to be reassembled again. He says that the chip was damaged when Data shot Lore, and Data doesn't want to implant it. He's actually glad that it's been damaged. He can't use it. Geordi's like, but why? Like, this represents everything you've always wanted. And Data's basically like, your friendship is more important to me, and I'm not going to risk it again by messing around with this chip. So then Data actually puts it in a box, and he's ready to destroy it. Like, he's got his phaser